Well, I've been joined by my fellow armchair jockeys, Lydia Hislop and Steve Mellish, as we look ahead to the 2000 Guineas. First of all, Lydia, what a surprise that we've got an unbeaten Aidan O'Brien colt that's favourite.
So often is the case, an exciting winner at Doncaster at the end of last season. It's going to be a big ask though. It's going to be typically a very competitive race that sorts out who is the leading 3-year-old colt. At this time of year, they've got to come to bloom early.
And Steve will be seeing some horses that we haven't seen for a while and others who've already strutted their stuff this year.
Yeah, I think it's an unusual, whether it's an unusual, I don't know, but it's a lot about potential rather than solid form. A lot of things that horses may do and what they think they may be capable of, rather than some horses put up a performance which is already, good enough to win a Guineas. I don't think there's anything that qualifies under those terms.
Okay, well, as we said, the favourite is Camelot, trained by Aidan O'Brien. Let's hear from the great man now.
Camelot has been favourite for the race ever since winning the Racing Post Trophy. Very impressive last year. First of all, some people have said that was a substandard renewal. What was your take on the race?
Yeah, sure, obviously it's very hard to say any race is substandard really at that time of the year, because they're all only 2-year-olds and they're all only maybe out a couple of times, so it's very hard to say that really, and you don't ever really know until you turn up again.
And both these maiden and the Racing Post had 5 runners. Is it any concern at all about a bigger field, or he's fine for that?
Yeah, sure, I don't know, obviously he has never run in a big field, but he's a straightforward horse, he's a relaxed horse really at home, so obviously the bigger the field, obviously the more dangers, so but I don't think it's going to be a problem.
You weren't originally committed to running in the race. What factors were you weighing up in your head about before deciding to let Camelot go for the Guineas?
Yes, I suppose obviously it was the horse himself really. Obviously if he wasn't going to be ready that early, we didn't want to be forcing him. So we were letting him tell us really, and we still are. So he's coming along nicely, and everything is going smooth so far.
So do you see him developing into a middle distance colt in time?
Yeah, I'd imagine so, Steve. Obviously he's ran his 2 runs over a mile last year. He's just we're using it as a start-off race.
It's funny that Aidan O'Brien started him off racing over a mile, and then he went to the Racing Post Trophy, both races over a mile, whereas his 2000 Guineas winner, the likes of King of Kings, Rocket Gibraltar, they had races over 6 and 7 furlongs as 2-year-olds, and I find it a little bit of a concern that maybe Camelot's best trip might be over further, and he might not be his best over a mile. But what about some of the other O'Brien runners? He's got other horses who've achieved quite a lot, the likes of Power.
Obviously I think he started maybe at 6, I think, and then 7 furlongs, and obviously he hasn't ran a mile, I don't think, so obviously he's a little bit different than Camelot, so but he's well, and he's a big hardy horse, and we think and hope he's going to be ready to run.
Do you think a mile will be a problem for him?
I don't think so, but the horse shows plenty early speed in his work, so I'm not sure how much further than a mile he will get, but listen, who knows, in his races he's a lazy way racing and comes home well, so it'll be interesting.
I like Power. He was second in the Dewhurst. I thought he hit a flat spot and then stuck on in a race that was steadily run. I think he'll be more benefited by a strongly run race, which hopefully the Guineas will be, and by the extra furlong of this trip. I can see him as the sort of solid player. I struggle to see him as the winner, but I think he's going to be quite hard to kick out of the first 4.
Okay. Well, traditionally, the Dewhurst was always the best pointer for the 2000 Guineas. Now, Parish Hall won the race last year, but yet he's not in the top echelons of the horses that people are considering for the race. Why is that?
Perfectly honestly, I don't know. Because perhaps it's because they all finished in a bit of a lump in the Dewhurst, and so that can often suggest that the horses were much of a muchness, but it can also suggest that the race was steadily run, which the Dewhurst was. And I think if there's any horse that was going to have been disadvantaged by that, it was the winner Parish Hall, who is bred to excel over further than the 7 furlongs of the Dewhurst, at a mile and even up to 10 furlongs, and perhaps even beyond, but definitely up to 10 furlongs, and yet he still managed to win. Now, maybe he was advantaged by racing on the stand-side rail, but maybe he was just the best horse in the race, and maybe, had it been strongly run, he would have proved himself by a greater margin to be the best horse in the race. That's the line I'm taking.
Well, another interesting Irish contender is Born to Sea, trained by John Ox. He's of course related to the 2009 2000 Guineas winner, See the Stars. We're going to actually hear from his trainer before we talk about Born to Sea. What did you make of his 2-year-old career?
Well, he didn't run as early as we expected. He was quite an early horse, very precocious. You could have run him any time you liked. He could have run in April if we'd wanted, but we were obviously going to take our time a bit with him, and we had planned to run him in July, and he just got sore shins the week of the race, and so that put us back. That's why he didn't run till September, and we're a little bit caught for time then. The year was moving on, so we ran him first time out in a listed race, and he won nicely, ran to good rating, nearly 100 or so on his first start, which was good rating for a horse first time out, and then improved nicely after that. We were delighted with the first race over 6, plenty of speed, but we decided to try him at 7, and we had a nice 5-week run up to the Killabullen Stakes. Everything went well. He seemed to improve and was going well, but the race didn't work out. So we were initially disappointed when he was beaten. He jumped awkwardly out of the stalls, had a muscle tear, actually tore a muscle up at the top of his quarters. But then 15 minutes after the race, he was sort of stuck to the ground and couldn't really walk. So we had an obvious explanation. So 2-year-old year was a little bit disappointing in that we didn't get to run him often enough or find out a little bit more about him. But he's shown us enough to say that he's a potentially good horse, but he still has to prove it.
In terms of where he is now and where Sea the Stars was at this stage, where he's not what he developed into, would you say there are ability-wise similarities?
It's the same with all of them. You just don't know until you get to the races and match them in against the best that they can take on. But yeah, there are some similarities. Sure, he's got plenty of ability. We know that. He's good looking. He's a great mover. He's got plenty of his brother's energy about him, and he certainly has ability. We just don't know, and we won't know until he gets to the races whether he just has that final kick that the good horses have and need.
Steve, what was your impression of Born to See?
I think one of the strongest arguments in his favour is that the trainer is very careful with the horses he brings to England. He has got an extremely good strike rate, and he's an experienced and able trainer who knows what he's got. So I think the fact that he's running him in this race tells you he won't be too far away from the standard.
Okay, a horse with even less experience is Top Offer, who's only run once, a late summer maiden. It's amazing to think that he may have been favourite for the Guineas if Camelot wasn't running.
Absolutely, because he's so inexperienced. Roger Charlton took the view that he wouldn't run him in the Greenham at Newbury this season because the ground had turned soft and testing. It would be just his second start and quite close to the Guineas, and he took the view that he didn't want the horse to have a tough race then in the preparation for the big race. But that does mean that we've got a very inexperienced horse running in what can often be quite a tough race at the start of the season. So that would be the concern about Top Offer. Clearly the trainer believes he's good enough. He's got to prove that going markedly up in grade.
Okay, we move on now to horses who've shown what they're capable of this season, starting with Trumpet Major, who is very impressive in the Craven Stakes.
Yeah, he was really impressive. The way that he won suggested that he's improved markedly over the winter. Racing people would say has done well. He was only 5th in the Dewhurst, and a lack of tactical speed cost him there because he got shuffled back. He had to make his challenge on the outside, and I think he's a bit better than the bare form when beaten by Parish Hall. Again, he showed a lack of tactical speed early in the race, and Ryan Moore, his rider, has raised the possibility that he could get himself outpaced earlier, particularly if the ground were to be a little bit faster, particularly if the field was to be bigger. But certainly he has forced his way into the 4 of our consideration by dint of the fact of having formed this season and very good form as well.
Well, it's time for us to make our selections for the 2000 Guineas. I'm going for Trumpet Major each way.
I'm going to go for Parish Hall. I think he's overpriced on what he's achieved, and I think he'll improve on his Dewhurst form with an extra furlong and a more strongly run race.
I'm going for Born to See. I think it's a race with lots of horses with potential, and I think he's got more than most.